Welcome to NYC Now. I'm Janae Pierre. For a lot of New York parents, childcare costs are shaping big life decisions. Today, we'll look at what New York State and the city are doing to make care more affordable. But first, here's what's going on. Mayor Zohran Mamdani says now at least 16 people have died outside in New York City during this period of extreme cold. He's urging New Yorkers to keep an eye out for their neighbors and anyone who might be vulnerable to the elements.
Conditions that people are living through, they are conditions that none of us should be comfortable with. And so we're going to use every single resource at our disposal to continue to build on this work, to open up more shelters, open up more beds, and ensure that New Yorkers are staying warm.
Mamdani says officials believe hypothermia played a role in 13 of the deaths. He says the other 3 appear to be overdose-related. City medical examiners are working to determine the official causes of death. Authorities say they have helped more than 900 people move to shelters or other indoor locations over the past 2 weeks. Mayor Mamdani is pushing for higher taxes on New York's wealthiest residents to close what he described as a multi-billion-dollar budget gap. Manhattan Borough President Brad Holman Siegel warns the politics in Albany are tough, but he says the mayor does have a point. He notes the very top earners in the city of New York pay the same effective tax rate as the bottom 40%.
The top 1%, they earn $7 to $9 million a year. So that is a disparity that the mayor is pointing out.
Holman Siegel told CBS New York that new corporate taxes could be one area where Albany leaders and City Hall might find agreement, even in an election year. February is Black History Month, and the city is marking it with some free events across the boroughs. On Saturday, February 14th, you can join a guided tour of Seneca Village in Central Park. That was once home to a thriving Black community. For a list of other Black History Month events, visit our news site, Gothamist. Stick around. We'll be right back. The cost of childcare is at the center of Governor Kathy Hochul's political agenda this year. You may remember during her 2025 State of the State address, the governor vowed to make childcare universal and affordable across New York.
I want to partner with the legislature to put our state on a pathway toward universal childcare. That really matters.
During this year's address, Governor Hochul doubled down on that.
1 year ago, I stood on this very stage and placed our state on the path to universal child care. Today, I stand before you with a clear roadmap to show you how we'll get there.
The Hochul administration has pledged a series of investments to expand low-cost options for children under 5. One of those pledges is a partnership with New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani to fund a free program for 2-year-olds in the city and expand existing 3K and pre-K programs. Now, these policies still need to be passed by the state legislature, but for parents like Jason Barney and Kendra Hughes, they look like relief on the horizon.
How much do you think you're spending annually on childcare?
$20,000.
$20,000?
Yes, I know it.
No, more than that.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, more, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
just
more than
daycare itself, $20,000.
$25,000.
But then on top of it, you know, with when the daycare's closed, you know, because daycare's closed portions of the year,
probably
summertime.
$25,000.
So it's so maybe it's about $25,000. Yeah.
So this 3K program can really help you all.
Oh yeah,
Totally,
it'll save $25,000.
We're very tight right now, so we'll be looking forward to
Person at the scene.
Jason and Kendra have a 2-year-old daughter, and they'd love to see that $25,000 back in their pockets.
Yeah, it's great, and it's awesome that it's coming as a cost-saving measure because we do, you know, need
very
to
much
save.
looking forward to not
hard.
paying.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what these policies would actually mean for parents. So I walked around Bed-Stuy at 7 in the morning, hoping to catch some parents when they had just dropped off their kids.
Okay, we are talking about childcare. Would you mind chatting
with us? Yes. Yes.
That's Shania Francois.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a school crossing guard.
All right. And you have a little one?
I do. He's 2. His name is 7.
Oh,
He just turned 2, actually.
I'm guessing that he's going to have a really big birthday party when he turns 7.
Yes, yes, yes.
Cute name.
Shania is a single mother. Her son 7 isn't in daycare yet, but she still pays for someone to help watch him while she's at work. She receives some help from the state through the Child Care Benefits Program, but she says it's not enough.
How much do you think you spend on childcare every month?
I say about 300 to 400 because I have the transportation every day and then the food. So that's during the day and then after when I come, plus his milk. So yeah, definitely Pampers, all that add up. Yep. And then I don't even think she's getting paid enough.
Yeah. You know, I'm told that your child care is supposed to be about 7% of your income.
Mm-hmm.
Do those numbers line up for you?
No.
No.
I got that 7% number from one of my colleagues, WNYC reporter Karen Yee. You'll hear from her later in this episode. But she told me that childcare isn't supposed to take up more than 7% of your check.
Because you also got to think, right? Regardless if you work in a city job, a career job, anything, you're not making the amount to cover your expenses, your rent, your bills, and bills trickle down to a bunch of other things. You got the phone bill, you got the Wi-Fi, and then your child also is another bill too with their expenses. So no, it would never.
The parents I talked to, they're definitely paying more than 7%.
You're saying to me that you're paying $2,500 a month, that is more than 7% of your income.
And just so you know, that's on the lower end of what the prices are around here because we looked for more, and there's other places that go up to $3,600 a month.
That's Orit Smith. Right now, her and her partner spend $2,500 a month on childcare for their 20-month-old daughter.
I mean, there's like programs like Head Start for low-income families, but it does, not everybody qualifies for that. So even if you're two, working parents, you're still gonna pay a lot, especially if you don't have help from family. Like we don't have help from family.
You don't have a village here?
Nope.
That sucks. I'm
Nope.
sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
that's okay.
Yeah.
No village and no extra money falling into their account, she tells me. Orit says bills are so tight that she and her partner are reconsidering expanding their family.
I would love to have more kids, but it's very, very hard. When you have rent, car, all those things, and then you still want to pay for the childcare. I mean, we don't have a choice. It's not like unless we stop working. But in that case, then we can't afford anything else. You know what I mean? So
there's a lot riding on the cost of childcare for New York parents. All money comes from somewhere. And the money you spend on childcare could be going towards a bigger apartment, or a summer vacation, or groceries and gas. But for every single one of the parents I spoke to, it's also affecting how they think, plan, and dream about growing their families. Here's Shania Francois again.
Funny story, I want to have 5 kids.
Okay, you do you.
But I don't know if that's actually going to happen, okay?
Yeah.
Because in this economy right now, no. And then even with my job, I'm like, I'm making it work because you, growing up, you know how to make things last and save and make it work for you. You understand? But right now, no. I don't think right now having another child for me is not a smart idea.
After the break, I'll talk with WNYC reporter Karen Yee about what you need to know about Governor Hochul's child care expansion plan. Stay close.
We pay $13 an hour. But when I enrolled my son, I actually went to look for daycares when I was pregnant because I had heard that you had to get on a wait list. And it was just very hard to find a spot. So at the time it was $12 an hour, but by the time we enrolled my son, it went up to $13 an hour. So it would have been $25K at that rate, but I think it's actually more. And I'm actually scared to do the math because I don't want to think about it.
Do the math. Do the math. Welcome back to NYC Now. I'm Janae Pierre. I'm back in the studio with WNYC reporter Karen Yee, talking about childcare and just how expensive it is. All right, so you're doing the math now.
I'm scared. $13. So $13 an hour times 8 times 5 times
4.
52 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 27,040.
$27,000.
No wonder my bank account looks the way it does. Well, no wonder this is such a triggering question for parents when I ask them. They're like, well,
we triggered some folks, okay?
Yeah.
Can you relate to any of the parents that we heard from?
yes, absolutely. I mean, the cost of childcare is just, I mean, I knew it was a lot when I was a reporter before I turned into a parent. But I think once I became a parent, I like really, really got it. I really, really understood it because it's actually quite a lot to navigate as a parent because the system is like, it's like Frankenstein, right? It's like all these little pieces and there's private pay and there's free care and then there's like all these programs you may or may not be eligible for and then you got to find one. And I think the other side of it is like, I kind of, as a parent, it is unaffordable, right? But as a provider, it's also unaffordable, right? Like, you know, what as much as I pay for my child, that's $13 an hour. That's still less than minimum wage, right?
Right.
And the women, the three women, they're wonderful women who take care of my son. Like they're doing God's work. They're taking care of this 16-month tiny tyrant who is a handful. And they're doing it for multiple kids, right? And arguably, you know, this conversation that we're having is very important. But the most important job is raising my child, right?
Yeah.
And they should be compensated fairly. And so there is a huge sort of gap between I can't afford to pay you more, but I know that you deserve to be paid more. Like these workers should be compensated for the really important and valuable work they're doing to raise the next generation of humans.
Yeah.
But then when you get hit with that bill every 2 weeks, it's just like, it just drains your bank account, right?
Yeah.
And I can totally relate to everything everybody was saying about, you know, family planning, having future kids. I mean, we cannot afford another child even if we wanted one, right? I mean, children are just expensive. They just accrue all of these costs that you don't even think about in addition to just the basic cost of care, right? And so, you know, here I am doing, you know, really hard work, right, every day, mostly to use my paycheck to give it to other women to take care of my child. And I think that's sort of it's sort of hard. It's sort of hard to accept that.
It's definitely hard. And a few weeks back, we talked about affordability here in New York City, but specifically housing affordability. And you're not even talking about your rent right now. Like, this is just childcare.
Right. I mean, childcare is like another rent. I mean, it's sort of an untouchable, right? You issue your rent check, so you have a place to live, and you issue your childcare check, so you can go to work to make money to pay your rent and then pay your childcare, right? So it is a huge portion of our budget. I haven't, you know, I'm scared to do the math, but we pay, what did we say earlier?
$27,400.
Oh my God. $27,040. Sorry. Give me a little. Give me
your
the $300
$400
back. Okay. $27,040 a year. So what is that every month? My rent is a little bit under that, actually. A couple $100 under.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does childcare look like for you these days?
Yeah. So we have our child in what's considered like a family home-based provider. And these are smaller spaces, right? So our provider only takes 10 kids and anywhere from infants to toddlers. So what I like about it is it's sort of like mixed age learning, where, you know, I think if you have like a more commercial daycare space, like if you think about like the big daycare centers, they sort of divide kids by age, right? So you have the 1-year classroom, the 2-year classroom, the infant classroom. So my son is in the room with like 2-year-olds, and now that he's older, he's in the room with infants, right? And that's really nice because when we first took him in, he was 6 months and he was the baby, right? He wanted to be like the big kids. Like he would come home and I'd be like, where did you learn that? Like he would just, I mean, I didn't teach you that. I haven't been with you all day. And he would just come home, like just learning all these milestones so quickly because he was exposed to these big kids and he wanted to be just like them.
Yeah.
I swear he's a different child at the daycare. He does not behave that way at my house.
Earlier, you talked about the fact that you were actually looking for a daycare while you were pregnant.
Yeah. So we had the advice we heard from a lot of our friends who had kids was get a daycare spot early. And so I think I was maybe 6-7 months pregnant, and I made a spreadsheet, and a lot of them were like, we don't have space for another 1.5 years. Like, we'll put you on the wait list.
A year and a half?
One place told me, we'll put you on the wait list for 2026. My son is 1.5 years now. So now I could have gotten that position, that spot. And so a lot of these places are booked because the demand is so high. And we found a great location, one that was sort of, if you can believe it, middle tier. It wasn't the most expensive in our neighborhood, and it wasn't the least expensive. There was one that was a little bit cheaper, but it was the the logistics of drop off and pickup, which is a whole other world, it wouldn't work for us, right? If we have to get to work and come back from work. Yeah. So.
And I want to ask about that. Like, when you're out looking at daycares, like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean so my experience is probably different than many other parents because I had been reporting on childcare for a while. So I was a little bit nuts and I knew how to look up licensing for these centers. I knew how to look up their violations. I knew how to background check, right?
You knew a little too much.
That's not the norm.
Yeah.
But I think for most parents, what you're looking for, they usually will give you a tour of the space. And it depends what works for your family, right? I mean, there may be like cultural or language things that you're looking for. Like we liked that our center, spoke Spanish. And so our son can sort of be bilingual, right? And learn and pick up Spanish as well as English. We liked that it was smaller and felt a little bit more comfortable as a home setting, right? Because you are leaving your child there, often very young, for most of the day. I was talking to other parents about this too, and it's like, you kind of just go off of vibes, Like we really liked the place we toured because they had all the kids sitting around a table and they were like playing nicely, and there was like some like it was like classical or maybe it was like new age music, and I was like, this feels nice. Like they have it under control, and they just seemed like they ran a pretty tight ship there, like sort of this very like disciplined but out of love kind of MO that we really appreciated.
Yeah. So before I went out to Bed-Stuy to talk with a gang of parents, you gave me a really good pep talk about, the questions that I should be asking. And you also led me to this federal guidance that let me know that childcare should be 7% of the household income. In my reporting, Karen, I didn't meet a single parent who's spending 7% or less of their household income on childcare. Everyone, including you, it seems, everyone's spending more. What does that tell us about affordability in New York City?
I mean, I think I laughed out loud when I saw this statistic, when I learned about this, because it is so like far from reality, from what most parents pay. I mean, I think at this point, every single parent that I've spoken to, no one pays within this range. And I think what it says is that, childcare just is unaffordable, right? It's sort of this this system that we haven't quite as a country. I think this is just a national problem, not just a New York City and a New York State problem. Haven't really figured out how to invest in it, right? Like we've sort of decided that for some reason, sort of the public education of a child begins at kindergarten, begins at 5 years old. And I think like two different frameworks that I think is helpful to think about childcare in is, why isn't sort of early childhood education considered that? If we can subsidize public education beginning K through 12, why don't we subsidize early childhood education, right? Because it is something that needs to be high quality, that we need to pay people for, and that, is very important to a child's development, right? And sort of considering that as one framework. And then the other framework that I heard recently is think about it as like infrastructure, right? Like we don't all necessarily have to individually pay for like the roads we drive on, right? Or the trains we take, right? And sort of similarly, childcare as this service, right, that we all need. It's like, it's for the sake of our economy, right? We need childcare in order to go work and do our jobs and actually like help drive and grow our local economy, right? But and yet to work, we have to pay other people to take care of our children, right? And so I think those two frameworks are really helpful to think about, why should childcare be something that is subsidized and universal?
Yeah. Also a lot of people that I talked to said that the cost of childcare is impacting the way they think about their future. And, this guy, Jason Barney, who we heard from at the top, he was actually drawn to tears when I asked him and his partner if they wanted more kids.
I just got a little emotional with the question just because, you can't have more kids. It's hard. It's really hard to have more kids, and it actually factors into your decision making, which I think is crazy.
So parents make it happen, right, Karen? But when we talk about like having more kids, does that 7% hold if you have multiple kids?
That I don't know. I need to find out. But, you do what you need to do for your kids. And a lot of the parents that I've spoken to, this really factors into their family planning, right? Like maybe when 3K was announced in New York City, which is free care for 3-year-olds, then that means, okay, maybe I don't get pregnant until my son or my daughter now is 2, right? So then when I give birth, they can go to free 3K, and then I'll only have to pay one child's care for my infant, right? So it's a lot of like baby math that goes into figuring out how much longer you have to pay for this. Even in my own family, right? My son is 1.5 years now, and I'm like, okay, we only have to pay childcare for another 1.5 years before my son can go to 3K.
Countdown.
Right? Yeah, it is a countdown. Like, how many more months? How much longer? And I think it factors into other things too, right? Do you take a job that's maybe a little bit lower paying? Do you maybe not take certain big trips, right? Those months. Do you think about how you buy groceries? Because it is such a huge part of your budget that affects everything else in your life, especially as you see all these other things go up in price: food, rent, utilities, gas, if you have a car, subway fares.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And then, I think ultimately, if you can't make it work, you see families leaving New York City and New York State. I mean, there's been reports that have said, families cite housing and childcare as the reasons for leaving New York City, particularly families with children under 5 years old. So if it, like I said, you do what you do for your kid. And if that means moving to Pennsylvania or Florida or Texas or New Jersey, you have to do that.
Yeah. You talked about baby math and parents, considering, hey, my kid is 2, maybe I can think about having another kid. But now with the first 2 care programs launching in the fall, that baby math can change for some folks, right? But when that launches in the fall, there will only be 2,000 slots, and advocates say that's only a fraction of the need. What does a truly universal 2 care program look like?
Well, I think ideally, universal care means free care, right? The way the city has rolled out care for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, pre-K and 3K, is a school year program. And what that means is the program goes until 2:15, right? And I wish my workday ended at 2:15.
Me too.
It does not. And so ideally, universal care is the care that you need to do your job, right? And have someone take care of your child, which means 8 to 10 hours a day, right? Right now, we don't have enough funding to do that for 3K and pre-K. And so that's a really big question that we have. Will 2 care be just for the school day, or will it be for the entire day, what they call extended day? And will it be for summer, right?
Will it be for summer?
Because then you get into the whole, I haven't gotten to this part yet of parenting on a personal level, but like the summer camp, the fight to get the Hunger Games to get your kid into the summer camp slot. I don't know what that's like, but sort of like that math too, like even if you finally make it because your kid turned 3, you got into a program that works for you, there's still, maybe I got to pay extra for the kid to be there until 5 or 6. Then I got to pay extra for the summer months, right? And so the cost doesn't always fully go away. And like I said, it's like this Frankenstein system, right? And so maybe you get placed in a seat that, doesn't even offer extended day because they don't have the resources. And so you got to pick up your kid at 2:15 or find somebody, maybe you get a part-time nanny that can pick up your kid and other kids until you get home from work. Maybe you figure out how to work from home those days or sort of alternate if you have a partner or if you have a family member. And so it is a lot of logistics planning. And so I think ultimately in an ideal world, universal childcare would sort of be, a much more comprehensive system where, again, the burden isn't on very exhausted parents to figure out how to make the baby math work out for their budgets.
Yeah. Let's get back to the governor's expansion plan. What can you tell me about it? What does this plan actually look like for New York and for New York City?
Right. So this was a plan to expand universal childcare to 2-year-olds in New York City by this fall. There will be 2,000 slots for 2-year-olds, and they're going to start in quote-unquote high-needs neighborhoods to start the rollout of 2 care.
Wait a minute. What's a high-need area? I could argue that New York City is a high-need area.
Yeah. Unclear. I mean, they could sort of pick it based on various criteria, maybe high needs because there's a lot of 2-year-olds there, or high needs because there's an affordability crunch there. High need, I don't really know the answer to. That's one of the big outstanding questions we have for the administration.
Very vague.
Yeah. So New York City will decide what are these neighborhoods. And then it'll roll out eventually over 4 years until full implementation. The governor says eventually it'll serve 30,000 2-year-olds, but there's questions about whether eventually it could serve more. And she's going to fund the first 2 years of the program. So it's going to be $73 million in the first year if, state legislatures agree and pass their budget, and then $475 million in the second year. And, you know, I think there's still a lot of questions like we talked about. Is it going to be a full day? Is it going to include summer months? What are the neighborhoods? And then another piece, we've been talking sort of a lot about the parent affordability side, but there's also the provider side, right? They're struggling too. They're not making ends meet. They're not making a lot of money out of this business. A lot of them do it because it's a labor of love, and they've been in this for many, many decades. You know, will they also be able to get a share of these city contracts, right? There's different kinds of providers, some in school-based settings, some in center, kind of commercial spaces, and then some in homes. And the question is, how will the city make sure that they're contracting with these smaller providers so that there's both continuity, right? Like, you know, if my neighborhood is selected, I would love for my son to stay in that program. I don't necessarily want to pick him up, put him in another program for 2 care, then maybe put him in another program for 3 care, right? And then move him eventually to school. That's a lot of disruption for a tiny child. And so I think there's a continuity question, but there's also like a disparity question. Like, will these smaller providers that are overwhelmingly run by women of color be included in this contracting process? And will they sort of make enough money, right, to continue to stay open and survive? Because many of them are sort of struggling financially.
Yeah, I want to get back to childcare workers in a bit. But before then, I have a question about just how sustainable the governor's expansion plan is. You mentioned that the state will fund this for 2 years. Mayor Zohran Mamdani was on a talk show recently, and they asked, you know, where is the money for this going to come from? And I have the same question. So looking beyond 2 years, where is that money coming from?
I mean, that is an ongoing question, right? I think Hochul, obviously, she's up for re-election. She does not want to raise taxes. She says she has enough money to launch this program with better than expected revenues. But I think it is going to be a tough question about if you want to sustain, if you have a bunch of 2-year-olds enrolled in free care, you can't just take that away, right? I mean, that's not going to be good for her or Mamdani, right? And so they're going to have to figure out a way to continue funding this. And so I think raising taxes is going to be one of the sort of key issues and potentially the only way to make this a long-term sustainable program that goes beyond, you know, the 2-year-olds and eventually maybe younger or eventually maybe reaching more 2-year-olds, right? Hochul has said, estimated about this will reach about 30,000 2-year-olds, but I know there's other reports that has estimated it could be up to 55, 60,000 2-year-olds. And so that's almost double.
Right.
So that's just more money, right? A lot of more money is going to be needed for this.
Yeah. What's going to be the biggest hurdle for childcare expansion?
There's a couple. I mean, you know, I've mentioned this several times, and it's a very fractured system, right? It's very wonky. We've sort of built childcare in a way where we've just added different appendages over time, right? You have, you know, de Blasio announcing pre-K, then 3K, now 2K. There are multiple streams of funding, federal, state, city. There are, you know, there's also issues with like the Fed sort of cutting back some of their funding. And so you have this like very Frankenstein system that's reliant on different multiple funding streams. And then I think what's happened is the burden really is on the parent to navigate what they're eligible for, whether they can qualify for this subsidy or that subsidy. We have a voucher program that currently has a massive, massive wait list of 15,000 families, if you can believe it. And a lot of those programs overlap, right? Maybe you're eligible for a voucher, but you're also eligible for another federal program. Maybe you're eligible for an extended day program. And so it's just very complicated. And I think the Mamdani administration is almost going to have to address some of like the complicated sort of fractured nature of this to truly get a universal system that works for both providers and workers in the long term and pays them a wage that is fair and decent, and for parents, right? I mean, I think the one piece that is missing from all of these announcements and all of this sort of celebration we've seen in the last few weeks is worker wages, right? I mean, the fact that home providers, their take-home pay is $6 an hour is pretty shocking, right? This is usually the owner, right? They own their home, they're paying rent, their take-home pay is very little. Then they have to turn around and hire assistants, right, to make sure that there's enough of a adult-to-child ratio. And those assistants make minimum wage, right? And so sometimes you have the owner making less than their hired assistants. And you also have, you know, mostly these are women in the field working minimum wage, which is arguably, like I've said at the beginning, very important work, right? You are taking care of the development of children. And so that, again, needs money,
Yeah.
right? And so you cannot have a universal childcare system if you do not have a fairly compensated workforce, because no one's want to go into this business when maybe they can go work at Starbucks or Amazon, better health benefits, et cetera, right? So you need to create an incentive for people to want to join this work as well.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here, Karen, the governor's expansion of childcare is one part of a multi-pronged plan to increase state support for childcare. As we look forward, what's next from here?
So the 2 Care plan is just the first step. The governor has also announced she wants to do universal pre-K across the state by 2028.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can be in a bubble here in New York City, but pre-K is not all districts across the state have free care for 4-year-olds. And she's also announced some initiatives for creating that pipeline of childcare worker, right? Helping them get degrees and certification and training. But again, no one's want to go through that if at the end of the day, they're just looking at a minimum wage job, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be really key moving forward to see if that becomes part of her budget, to see if in the future years to come, the raising taxes question, if that's going to happen. And then I think, the devil's in the details. We're going to have to see how 2 Care is rolled out, what that's going to mean for parents, how they're going to message this. I mean, who is eligible? How do you apply? Is your kid, can you stay in your current provider? And then the other, I think, big challenge is, the governor has said $73 million for the first year of 2 Care for 2,000 kids. And so I think the challenge will be for the city, they're going to have one pool of money, right, which is the $73 million that the governor has promised in the first year. Now, if they decide to give providers more money, right, to subsidize their wages, that means there's going to be less money to go around, which could mean fewer seats. And they've promised 2,000 in the first year, right? And so that's sort of going to be the tension as we see 2 Care being rolled out across the city.
Paying providers more means that money doesn't stretch as far.
Right. It may not cover as many kids initially, right? But it may be good for the long term because then you're creating a much more sustainable system.
Yeah. That's WNYC's Karen Yee. Karen, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Janae.
What does childcare look like for you? Let us know. Hit us up at nycnow@wnyc.org. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening to NYC Now. I'm Janae Pierre. See you next time.